When I used to watch Kobe play, I knew that Kobe was a slightly better offensive player than was Michael. And it was very nuanced. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I saw him just able to do things that Michael couldn't do. And there wasn't much that Michael couldn't do, you know. But I could never really put my finger on it, and I couldn't really prove it statistically. And with the way Kobe's career unfolded, you could point to moments that showed that he was a better offensive player than was Michael. But you couldn't really get over the hump of that 30-point per game scoring average Michael finished with. I do believe I have uncovered statistical proof. And what it comes down to is you have to take into account the differences in era. Kobe's era was a much more difficult era to score in than was Michael, even though they didn't play a hell of a lot, a lot of years apart. Kobe's era, his prime being the late 90s, early 2000s, was a particularly difficult time to play in. Now, I'm not talking about number of possessions. I'm talking about stringently is the game officiated, how much defense is allowed, is it easier to score? Obviously, we know it's easier to score now. You look at the 90s and you look at league scoring during that time, it's quite obvious that it was more difficult to score during Kobe's era. So what I did was I went through and I looked at the two respective players, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and I tabulated league scoring during the two players' respective eras. So obviously for Michael played from 1985 till 2003, and Kobe played from 1996 until 2016. Now, I did not include the seasons in which Michael did not play. So I only included the 15 seasons that he actually played. And I just tabulated those league averages. So league scoring during Michael Jordan's era was 103.75 points per game. League scoring during Kobe's era was 97.56 points per game. Okay. So then I looked at the career average per 36 minutes, just to keep the statistics tight. Michael played a couple more minutes a game, and that's probably because of Kobe's rookie year when he was coming off the bench. So career averages per 36 minutes. Michael 28.3, Kobe 24.9. So this is where I take into account the different eras. So if you divide the career averages into the league scoring, the league scoring during the respective players' era, Well, if you express the career average as a percentage of league scoring during the player's era, you have, for Michael Jordan, you have .273, and for Kobe, you have .255. So essentially, you just divide the the league scoring average into the career average. So you see the numbers are a little bit closer. Okay. Then you have to take into account the fact that even within that 36 minutes per game, Michael still shot more. So if you give Michael took actually 2.1 more field goal attempts per game. And I don't have it listed on the chart, but Kobe averaged 1.48 points per field goal attempts throughout his career. So if you give him 2.1 more field goal attempts, and you multiply that by the 1.48 points per game, you have a little more than three more points per game. So if you add that 3 points to the career average per 36 minutes, you have 28 for Kobe. So then you adjust the numbers, and that's where you have Kobe coming out on top at .287. And I'll say this: I think it's fair to assume that Kobe, in a different universe, would have been able to get off as many shots as Michael Jordan did. And it's not like Kobe was. If you were comparing Michael Jordan to a system player, like let's say, I always use John Stockton. I always pick on John Stockton. It's a classic sort of system player. Or maybe even Steve Kerr. Let's use Steve Kerr. We know Steve Kerr is not going to really get his own shot, but we know that Kobe could have. So the only reason Kobe took fewer field goal attempts was because he played with Shaq, and to a lesser extent because he played with Pau Gasol. In other words, unlike Michael, Kobe played with offensive players that were at least one offensive player that was almost as gifted as he was. Whereas Michael, was a significant offensive drop-off between Michael and Scottie Pippen. So if you give Kobe the same number of field goal attempts, Kobe's adjusted career percentage of league scoring is higher. So what does this tell us? It tells us that Kobe was a better offensive player. And, the difficult thing is, you can't really prove that at a glance. Everybody knows about Michael's career scoring average and the scoring titles and everything. But I think that Kobe had the misfortune of essentially having to fight his way onto the Lakers starting lineup, having to play with Shaq. In many ways, playing for the Lakers and not playing for an organization that was desperate for talent. You know, Kobe had to prove himself to a much greater degree in the organization, especially in the early days. They weren't going to work to accommodate Kobe as the Bulls did for Michael. So I think those factors influenced Kobe's statistics. But of course, we all know there were moments when Kobe showed clearly that he was the better offensive player. You know, he outscored the Western Conference champions for 3 quarters. You know, as great as Mike was, and Mike was great, I don't think he ever quite elevated to where Kobe was in the 2005-2006 season. The 81-point game. It's quite remarkable, you know, with the 81-point game. With as much offense as going on right now, no one's really come close to that. You know, with as open as the floor is, with all the shooters, and basically it's illegal to play defense in today's NBA. No one's really come close. The closest anyone's come, I think, is Devin Booker with 70. So it's really a testament to just how much further ahead of the competition Kobe was. And it's part of the reason I believe he's the greatest player in NBA history. So this is part 1 of this series. I'm going to lay out why I believe Kobe Bryant was a greater singular component to a championship team than was Michael Jordan. But I'm sure many of you will disagree. Feel free to come in the comment section and let me know where I went wrong. Thank you.